What is up with your mood? Deborah asked her best friend. Pam, are you still thinking about our last conversation? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I don't know what came over me. Maybe I didn't see your husband, but someone who looked like him. The sun was very bright that day, and I was standing far away, and that man was wearing dark glasses and was putting some student into the car. But your Derek is an honorable man, and he loves you. I don't think he could be cheating on you. Pamela nodded her head, but she couldn't help feeling that her friend wasn't really mistaken, because lately the relationship between Pamela and her husband had become noticeably strained. Do you remember the gift your husband gave you for your birthday last year? Deborah looked guilty. He bought you a ticket to Paris because you have been dreaming about it for so long. Yeah, but I went alone, Pam objected. He stayed in the city to deal with some business for the company, and there was no one to even take a picture of me in Paris, and so I had to ask other tourists. Maybe Derek really did have some urgent business. Her friend shook her head. Nothing's perfect in this world, and someone has money to go on a trip but doesn't have the time for it, while someone doesn't have a job and can't even afford to travel within the state. Everyone has their own problems. Pamela sighed sadly. I get it. But I still can't get rid of the thought that maybe another woman might be involved in all this. We're still young, but we already live like an elderly couple. You wouldn't believe it. I don't even remember the last time we kissed. Our life is so decorous. I mean, we really do live like an old couple. So don't wait for him to change something. Make the first move, Deborah insisted. For example, Derek has a birthday soon, so you can surprise him. Throw a party, put on a beautiful dress, some makeup, and amaze him with your beauty. You two seem to be stuck in a rut, so rekindle that fire of yours. On the day of Derek's birthday, Pamela cordially greeted the guests in a cozy restaurant while furtively glancing at her watch. But her husband wasn't there yet. Look, your hubby's finally here, and he brought... Oh, God. The friend grabbed Pamela by the hand and didn't finish. What is it? Pamela turned her head, trying to see her husband in the crowd. This woman with him, it's the blonde I saw with that man in the glasses. And there I was doubting myself. Look, they even arrived together. Derek completely lost his mind, the friend said, getting angrier by the second. Pamela, on the other hand, felt an incredible emptiness in her soul. Her suspicions were confirmed, and there wasn't any doubt left. She recognized the way her husband was looking at the blonde. He used to look that way at Pamela on their honeymoon many, many years ago. The blonde sat down at the table near the door and seemed to have even started a conversation with other guests. At the time, Derek approached his wife with a smile. Sorry, I'm late, my love, but I had to finish up a few things at work. And what's the name of the thing in the red dress? Pam asked bitterly. The man was taken aback for a moment. This is my assistant. She's been working with me for over a year. She moved here from a small town and rents an apartment. She's always busy at work, so she doesn't even have time to go to the movies or anywhere else, so I thought I'd bring her to the restaurant so she could have some fun, talk to people, make friends. And she didn't share her difficult story with you during your late nights at the office? Pam asked coldly. And you must have felt so sorry for her that you decided to bring her here and nearly started making out with her in front of all the guests. The guests started listening to the escalating scandal, and Derek's face quickly got covered with red spots of shame. What are you talking about, Pam? Are you paranoid? Don't you dare insult my friend. Deborah couldn't resist chiming in. She's telling the truth, and you know it. I saw you two together a few weeks ago, and you were making out in the street. Cheater. Pamela couldn't stop herself and slapped her husband. They had been married for 10 years, and the woman had gotten too comfortable with her calm and predictable life. It seemed that it would always be like that. After all, when they had just gotten married, the poor woman could never have even imagined that cheating, lying, and betrayal would be part of their relationship. It could happen to anyone else, but not them. Pamela met her husband during junior year of college. They had some classes together, and Derek was already working on a small company and renting an apartment at the time. Soon, the young people opened a design agency, and Pamela's father even invested money in it. There were only a few orders at first, and Pamela took on the jobs of both the designer and the accountant. But gradually, things went uphill, the staff expanded, and her husband completely took over the business. Meanwhile, the woman got to do what she loved most, painting. She painted pictures and held charity exhibitions. At that point, the young family had more than enough money, but it didn't seem to make them any happier. Derek started staying late at work often and going on long business trips, and he even started coming up with various excuses so as not to spend time with his wife on weekends too. Pamela was growing used to the absence of her husband and did her best not to look for reasons for such behavior. Derek can't be cheating on me, and he's a hard worker, and he has to make sure that everything is perfect. The woman couldn't get pregnant, although she repeatedly saw a doctor about it. She was told that there weren't any issues with her health. Perhaps it was her husband who had problems, but she never managed to get him to see a doctor since he never had time for it. And today, when all hopes for a family life had collapsed, Pamela saw that all those days that Derek had spent away from the home in a completely different, distorted light. There was no way for her to know if her husband was really busy with work or if he went to the office to have fun with his assistant, to take her out to restaurants and show her the rich life. The woman was devastated. As soon as she got home, she rushed to pack her suitcase, not even changing out of her evening dress. "Where are you going to go?" Deborah asked in a whisper. I don't know anywhere. I just need to get out of here before Derek gets home. I can't look at him right now." Pamela desperately wanted to hurt Derek the way he hurt her. "Look, you can stay at my place. Let's go," Deborah suggested. "So what are you thinking of doing next?" "Well, getting divorced," Pamela sighed. I couldn't live with my husband after what he did, you know? If I could at least find out how long it's been going on, if it was an accidental affair, or has my husband cheating on me for a long time, it's all simply disgusting." "You should get back at him," Deborah smiled. "Get a young lover and let him feel like what it's like to be in your shoes." "I'd really love to get even with my husband," Pam said. "But I don't know how. All these ideas about getting lovers disgust me." "And what if you just pretended?" Deborah wouldn't let go. "Let Derek think you have a lover, and it should be enough to make him feel nervous. I even have a candidate for the role of your lover. He's on his way over now. I texted him, and he agreed to have coffee with us. Remember Jerome, the lawyer from the agency? I know for a fact that he's always liked you." Pamela got very angry. "You had no right to do that. Why do you always do what you think is best without listening to anyone else's opinion?" "Because you're too soft and you always need to be pushed. You'll see. Jerome will be more than happy to help. And there's someone knocking on the door already." Pamela felt her heart almost jump out of her chest. It really was the lawyer. The years had changed the young man, but not much. He was no longer the thin, awkward guy that she remembered him to be. Jerome matured and became stronger, but his blue eyes looked just as nice and his smile was just as sweet. The friends chatted over a cup of coffee, and Deborah voiced her idea. At that moment, Pam was about to burn down from shame, but the old friend didn't feel embarrassed. Jerome didn't condemn the woman's plan, but on the contrary, he wanted to cheer Pamela up and help her teach her husband a lesson. The next day, the woman felt terrible embarrassment when she got into Jerome's car to go to a restaurant with him, but the man, on the contrary, seemed very confident. "After dinner, we're going to the theater. There's a great play today. I pulled some strings and got us the best seats." "You shouldn't have spent so much money," Pam was embarrassed. "I'll pay you back." "No way. I've been dreaming about this day for a long time, Pamela." The expression on the man's face when he said her name sent a shiver down Pamela's back. Derek hadn't talked like that in a long time, or invited her to go out, or even looked at her that way. Pamela suddenly got to experience the long-forgotten feelings as if she was back on her honeymoon. That day, her husband never showed up. Deborah didn't explain her plan to Pamela, and she didn't ask again. Pam realized that she enjoyed spending time with Jerome and wanted their relationship to last as long as possible. Over the next couple weeks, the young people went to so many beautiful places that the original plan of revenge began to fade from the woman's head. Now it seemed rather petty and insignificant, and the plan of betrayal had dulled a bit. Pamela no longer worried about her husband having fun somewhere with his secretary. She thought more about when Jerome would take her on another date. One warm summer evening, the young people were sitting on a restaurant terrace, and Jerome was telling Pamela about his last year's trip to the mountains, gesticulating wildly. The woman was so enticed that she didn't even notice her husband approaching the table. "Good evening, everyone," Derek muttered. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Pam looked at him coldly. You are, actually, and I'd appreciate it if you left now. Hi, boss. Jerome nodded politely. Unlike Pamela, he was completely calm. It seemed that the appearance of his boss didn't faze him at all. We saw each other at the meeting earlier today, the man grumbled. I see you're having a romantic dinner. What, did you find yourself a young lover? That's a cheap move. Or did he charm you to get your money? Young people these days. Get out of here, Pam screamed. Sure, the husband nodded. And you stay with your lover, but I'm getting the company and the divorce. Actually, I'm getting everything, and you figure out how to live life on your own. And you, Jerome, you're fired. Don't come back to the office. The young couple watched Derek go. Well, it's not like I'll be out of work. I'll have your divorce to handle now. Someone has to make sure you get your fair share. Your husband won't be able to get everything. Don't worry. Jerome reassured the woman. I'm not worried, Pamela muttered, clutching a napkin in her hands. The lawyer's confident tone when he spoke about the firm made the woman doubt her situation. What if her husband was right and Jerome really was in it for the money? After her husband's betrayal, Pamela couldn't trust anybody completely. Having returned to a friend's apartment, Pamela told her what happened at the restaurant, as well as her worries. It seems that Derek really didn't expect me to find another man. But that's great, the friend said, clapping her hands. Isn't that what we wanted? Why are you so sad? I thought you and Jerome were doing great. Don't you like him? I do, Pamela nodded. But I was thinking, what if he's only with me for the money? What's got into you? Deborah sighed. Don't you see the way he looks at you? No one has ever looked at me like that. I'm even a little jealous. Still, how can I be sure? Pam asked, but the answer came rather soon. The divorce was difficult, but Jerome was right. He managed to sue Derek for a substantial share of the property. Pamela sat in front of the computer screen, looking at the huge amount of money in our account and wondered what to do with it. Just give it to charity or something, Deborah said indifferently. If you don't need it, there are people who could put it to good use. Pamela wasn't sure. So much money, I don't even know. Let Jerome decide, her friend suggested. After all, you're a couple now, aren't you? The women held their breath, waiting for the young man's response. He approached the computer, reached out for the keyboard, and in a couple of clicks, sent half the money to charity. I think it's important to share with those less fortunate, but I kept half of it. I think we should open our own foundation to help the needy and unrecognized talents. And Pamela, you could lead it. Unless, of course, you don't want to. Pam threw herself on Jerome's neck and sobbed quietly. Thank you. You did everything right, Jerome. If you only knew how much I love you. The man hugged Pamela and pulled her in for a kiss. Deborah quickly left the apartment and walked contentedly down the street, clicking her heels. Everything worked out just as she'd planned. And now her friend will be truly happy.